This week's podcast is about
international diversity and inclusion.
And in all honesty, there isn't really a format to it.
This is a topic we've wanted to talk about on the podcast.
And a topic that I'm really passionate about.
Alright lads, welcome back to MidweekMC, the part of the podcast where I sit down with the amazing co-host, Captain AJX, who is currently on gremlin mode. I don't know if they will be for the podcast, but oh man, I don't know what's going on with AJX.
I'm nothing but professional. Those words are liable. I will get you in court.
No, I have no proof. Oh god.
Well, you kind of do have proof because we have a special guest on this week yet again.
No way.
Ooh. Who is it? Orbitzz?
Who?
Oh my god.
Who's that?
Who?
We might as well just let them introduce themselves at this point.
What? Who? Hi.
Hello, who are
You
you?
can introduce me if you want. I don't want to steal your thunder, Mr. Podcast Man.
No, you've already done it. I'm just kind of already stole it.
Well,
Plus,
I didn't
this is
mean
more,
to.
But this is more your podcast, mystery guest. So.
Oh, you say that. Oh, I'm RomanRodri. I exist. I don't really do that much. I help with the podcast. I stream sometimes, and I am doing my master's degree. That's all I do in life.
W. And yourself, AJX? Who are you? What do you do?
I'm AJX. I have a marketing degree. I work for a company that makes $3 billion per year.
Yo.
Yo.
Damn! What a crazy introduction. Don't really know why you did it.
Crazy
Because
fun.
you're the co-host, but you know, fair enough, I guess.
You asked and not you, AJX.
Yeah, no, but I didn't actually think you were gonna answer. I was just being a bit goofy.
What? Oh god, this is the most goofy podcast we've ever had.
Yeah,
I
it's
feel like it's my fault.
well, it's also going to be a serious podcast, which is probably not the best to start off being goofy. But
That's true.
Mix and match.
we'll
Mix
be
and match.
okay. We'll be okay. Then this should have just been a general conversation one where we just sit in a corner, have a little banter time. But we are actually talking about something serious-ish, I guess, today. Something that's a good topic, nonetheless, something cool to talk about. And it's actually your topic, Roman. So as you mentioned at the start of the podcast, you are part of the podcast team. The podcast team has grown since it has somebody new who I don't think they'll be announced by the time this podcast has come out, so I'm not going to say who, but Roma is essentially, she does the research for the podcast every single time there's a guest that comes on, unless I don't need it. For the most part, every single guest Roman does research for, find out like just topics and stuff. Obviously I do my own research as well, but it's always nice to have help. And since we had Bendo on the podcast, I wanted to bring you on because you're one of the OG podcast team, and you chose today's topic. So what is it? What are we going to be talking about today?
Today, we're going to talk about something that's been really big this year, specifically, which is international representation in the Minecraft community, and basically bridging the gap between worldwide communities in Minecraft and beyond. It goes beyond it. Generally, Twitch and
Yeah,
YouTube. It
it's
goes
been
all
huge
over the
this
place. Yeah, it's been absolutely insane to think about. I don't know. Do you want to get right into the discussion, or do you have any thoughts to add before we do?
Well, I was just gonna add like what are some examples right now that you can think of off the top of your head to kind of back your point here?
Oh yeah, well, first off, we have the huge QSMP. Like since the whole year, the QSMP has dominated Twitch
When
and
did
Twitter
that come to be?
discussions.
Do you remember?
It started on the last week of March, I believe, or the first week of April.
Been around for
Something
that long?
along those lines. Yeah, it's quite new. It was announced around March. I remember that. It had like a lot of hype behind it because it has Dan TDM and Wilbur Soot and Dilza. And then they started announcing all these Spanish speakers. And then we were like, oh, so it's going to be like several different languages. And then there was chaos from there. Eventually, they came to add the whole like translator mod, which was revolutionary. So the QSMP has been massive. Aside from that, we had actually earlier in the year, in February, I believe, we had Squidcraft 2, which is a Spanish event where they have Spanish-speaking creators and English-speaking creators in the event, but it's mostly Spanish. And it was like this big experience. It was basically my whole entry into the idea. So Squidcraft, QSMP, there's a few like defunct SMPs and some smaller ones that have started since that also go in the same line following the QSMP. And the Spanish-speaking teams in MCC, which started happening in the middle of the year. That's like been very exciting. Those are like the big examples.
Sure. You're not fair enough. You could think of actually a lot there. I mean, I knew you was going to be able to, but I was just making sure that like you did have a few in mind. Or not making sure per se, but just like you get what I mean.
I do.
So I guess one's going to take lead here, Roman, because this is kind of more your podcast, and unless you have anything to add, AJX, before we get into it.
No, I think Roman put it perfectly there. Yeah, she's talked very aptly about, even in events spaces, we've got more and more people join in, and it's been amazing.
Exactly, yeah.
Yeah.
Go on then, Roman, take charge. Do you have any questions? Do you have any specific topics you want to get into that we can talk about? I mean, we can
Well,
talk...
I can ask the two of you. Like, what are your first exposures to content creators that either don't speak English as a first language or didn't really speak English at all?
I'll let you go first here, AJX, I think, because you're more...
So you can...
I know, but more so you've just been in this community for longer, so you might have, like... Because the Bedrock community, there was, like, I can give examples of that, which I will, but in regards to it make more sense to kind of start by talking about this community in specific, if you get me, because this podcast is going back around about sorry, AJX.
I was going to say, if we take it way back, I'm talking when I started watching Minecraft videos, there wasn't really many people. There's a few like German creators and so on. Obviously I was a lot younger there, so I was not really searching them out, but in terms of in this community, I would definitely say it tended to be around 2020. We saw creators like, the big one for me is, I remember the Love and Host, Wilbur's Love and Host, and I think that was the first like big thing for me. We were introduced to Nikki, and Nikki's obviously German, can speak several languages, but from there, Quackity comes into the community, and he obviously done a lot of he had Discord got talent before that, and then he obviously comes into this community via Tommy and the Dream SMP, and then sort of from there, it's widening out. We've always, in the whole of Minecraft, there's a lot of Spanish creators that are very big, but never really have we had a chance, this sort of huge crossover, which is strange really, because Minecraft's obviously been huge for a while, and even during the years that it was sort of not as popular, there was still nothing that managed to cross it over. So it's crazy that it's only just really in the last 2 years, I'd say, if that, the last year.
For myself, so obviously I started off on Bedrock Edition for like a good amount of time, and in the Bedrock community it was mainly like European. I mean, to be fair, actually in the Hive community there was a lot more Americans than anything else. Obviously I didn't really focus too much on, I've never really looked into it, if that makes sense. Like, it's easy to see now that we're talking about it, but I've never really paid attention to it, if that makes sense. So not in a bad way, just like I've kind of just always done my own thing. But there was a good few like Asian content creators in the community. I can name like Zoop, Taria. They were like bigger content creators who was cool, like, were interesting to watch and who I talked to at the time. But that community was mainly like American. And then when I made a switch to Java Edition, once again, it's also just a case of like, I don't really ask, if that makes sense. I don't really pay too much attention to it. For instance, like yourself, Roman, like, you're Brazilian, right? Are you fully Brazilian?
Yeah.
I've never actually, once again, I've never asked. I know you're Brazilian, but are you fully Brazilian?
Yes.
Once again, if you never told me that, or if I never like really looked for it, I wouldn't know. Like, it's not a case of like not caring. It's just once again just a case of like, because you told me, I now know it. But then in like, I think it was more once I moved into this community when I started kind of paying more attention to it and seeing it more. For instance, like in MCC Rising, there was a full Brazilian team in MCC Rising 2, which was really sick. And then there's been like a full Spanish team in MCC, for example. And didn't they win? They won that tournament, I believe.
They did. They won I think the first Spanish team also won. Had JoJo guiding them.
Exactly.
Yes.
And then just like, oh yeah, sorry, go on, AJX.
No, I was saying, they were.
And it's just like more like the Hive community was a lot more compact, right? Everyone knew everyone kind of thing. All the creators knew all the other creators. Whereas in this community, I haven't interacted with a lot of the creators. Like, a lot of them know me and a lot of them interact with me. Obviously I interact back, but I've never like, I don't actively talk to a lot of the creators, because how I would say it in the nicest way possible is I'm very preoccupied with the podcast. Like, very, very busy with the podcast. So it's very rare I even get like time to play with other people. But for example, this podcast is coming out next Wednesday, but from recording this, as long as it still goes through, tomorrow I'm going to be streaming Fortnite with my brothers, Debbie Morales and Slum. I believe Slum is British, my brothers is British, and then you told me before the podcast that Debbie Morales is Puerto Rican, AJX?
Yes.
Yeah, so like then like once again with Debbie, I always like assumed she wasn't only American, but I never really knew what like...
Well, like Puerto Rico is this thing where, so these overseas American territories are always a bit of a gray area where it depends on what the person kind of wants to identify themselves as. But I think, so Puerto Rican culture is such a profoundly like unique thing that usually Puerto Rican just say like, oh yeah, I'm Puerto Rican, but they are American technically. Like, in terms of, they have the American passport and stuff like that, and they are citizens of the USA technically, but they are very much.
And
like
Debbie's a second generation immigrant as well.
Okay, yeah. Well, the fact that she's fine with like you sharing that, because you wouldn't have said it on the podcast otherwise, is like, it's nice to talk about. Then also just like, I guess it's just more this community, how I started kind of realizing more, but it was always something that I feel like if I look back on it now and actually contacted people, there's probably a lot of people in my old community who were from different parts of Europe. I know one of my viewers, Ciano, I can't remember for the life of me what country from, but he's one of my mods and he's from a European country. I know like, there's a lot of skin makers and stuff who are from a lot of different places in Europe, and it's just like, there's a lot more, there's a lot more now in this community than there was in my old ones. I think it's just definitely when I made the switch is when I started seeing it more, and like, which is cool. I guess that's technically part of when you said about this year, it became more so, is it kind of links to that, because this year I joined the Java community in March this year. So.
I wanted to actually, there was something that I thought about while you guys were talking. So from your points of view, it kind of came to be the international communication, I suppose, in the like mainly the Minecraft community, but in the content creation community as a whole, intensified. Well, it started kind of like AJX said, like they were already people before, and Nikki is German and really came into notoriety in 2020. And I was in Nikki's early community as well. But like she didn't really make German speaking content until a couple years later, which is curious actually, that she talked about wanting to do it off. She never quite worked up to it because nobody else really did that kind of thing where they did several different, like they did more than one language on stream. Like she made a specific channel just for German later on. But at the time, she always wanted to and never did. And it took like a bit of I think it took a bit of like everyone else also feeling like they want to do the same and doing that for her to go, yeah, I'm not going to suddenly lose my entire audience just because I'm doing it in German, which is very true. Like she has a very big German audience nowadays. And then when it comes to my experience with content creators, like content creators from other countries, and this is the same experience that a lot of Brazilians and Latin Americans had, is a lot of us came into contact with English-speaking creators immediately, even though we had a lot of really big Brazilian creators. Our Brazilian creators used to talk about English-speaking creators. Like I remember very vividly. There was this one Brazilian YouTuber called Venom Extreme, and he was iconic when I was a kid. He was like one of a group of people who was iconic. We also had Portuguese creators from Portugal, and they all collabed together. So that, for me, that was my first multi-country effort of several content creators, was as early as like when I was 10 years old and 11 years old. And those creators used to talk about like the Ozcast, you know what I mean? Like the Ozcast were the first English-speaking creators that I watched. And they're the reason that I learned English when as early as I did, because I knew how to write, but I didn't really speak English or listen to it very well until I started watching them. And a lot of people say the same thing, that, oh, these guys helped me learn English, when they point to like the Ozcast or Sky Does Minecraft or some other really massive English-speaking creator. So for me, it started really early. It's defined like my whole life. And I didn't really think about Brazilian content creators at all for several years. But my school friends and I used to bond over like, all these, a few of them I won't talk about because I don't know, like one of them has just been problematic, so I won't talk about them. But the rest of them, like Venom Extreme, some Portugal creators like Pheromonas, they, like, we just talked about them constantly, and then occasionally would interject with like an American or British creator as well. So it's funny to me to see like how different our experiences have been, because only recently has the gap kind of been mended, and I've gone back to actually watching Brazilian creators now, because I kind of got estranged from it. Like I had to go to the English speaking community because I started having so many English friends that I kind of neglected the Brazilian community for several years. And that, like, I stream in English, so that's quite intense for me, really, because I've been doing streams in English because I didn't really have any exposure to Brazilian streamers anymore, and I've only started to go back to it now when everyone else has.
That's why we're doing the podcast today, so to kind of talk about our own experiences. It's more so like, once again, looking back on this community, right, how I've mentioned, I want to say creators, but I'm not going to, just for the sake of, I don't know if they want to be mentioned or not. We all know, if you're in this community, you know, like, different creators are from different parts of Europe. I know obviously there's also South American, etc., but I'm just, in my mind right now, I have two creators and I know they're from Europe, is what I'm trying to get at. And it's like, you know, they both speak English, right? Then in this community, everyone seems to just speak English. Does that make sense? Like, even when, for instance, when Shadoon is teamed with somebody who's English in MCC, they speak English, right? The English person doesn't speak Spanish. You know what I mean? Does that make sense? Yeah. So, that kind of idea is like, that's why I've never really got, because the thing is, I studied Spanish in secondary school, and I was saying this to, I can't remember what podcast, was it even on a podcast, or was it either on a podcast or was it in a voice call? But I know one thing I said to, no, it was on the Silver Runs podcast that's coming out in 2 days from when we're recording this now. Something I said was that I used to play FIFA in Spanish because I didn't like the English commentary. So I used to listen to, and for the time, I can't really remember any of it now, but I learned how to like say certain words in Spanish through the FIFA commentary. And obviously, I did really, really bad in my Spanish exams, but I know like certain words like hola, me llamo Orbitzz. Obviously, pronunciation isn't all there, but like como estás, muy bien, uno, dos, tres, cuatro, cinco, seis, siete, ocho. Like I can say all of that, but when like I couldn't speak like a full sentence of Spanish, if that makes sense.
I totally get that. No, because it's like when you said like people seem to speak. A lot of people seem to speak English, even though they're part of an entirely different country where the first language isn't English. It feels like having to speak English is kind of like a necessity nowadays. Like I got enrolled into an English school really early to learn like an English course specifically to learn English, and I was really good at it. I don't know. When I was a kid, I was just really focused on it, so I was really good at it. And that's the whole reason that I'm in the English community in the first place, is because I kind of just fell in love with the language. I guess I was just like a diligent child, which is not what I am now. I'm not diligent at all. I'm very much having trouble with learning Spanish right now because I just struggle to differentiate between Portuguese and Spanish a lot of the time, but I'm still trying. And then that kind of thing. So it's like if you want to get like really, really like academic about it, there's this whole thing that would be like called soft power, which is essentially cultural power or cultural like media dominance. So media dominance of a certain country or culture or language. And since English-speaking culture is so dominant in so much of the world, suddenly you have all these people who want to learn English for the past few decades. And I was part of that generation, like really, really deeply in that generation. And then recently you also have different languages coming. It's like a lot of people, thanks to like K-pop and stuff, this is something that a friend of mine studied. K-pop soft power means that Korean is now coming more into the world stage as a language that people want to learn and the culture that people want to be interested in. And then you also have Spanish. Like Spanish also, like remember when Despacito fucking took over the world? So there's like these waves and waves of like different soft powers that come and go. But the English one is one that I was deeply connected to. And Spanish in Brazil, when I was growing up, I don't know how it is now, was very kind of frowned upon, so to speak. Like people didn't care about Spanish because everyone said that English was the most important thing for your life, for the whole world. Because everyone in the world speaks English. It didn't seem to matter to everyone that we are surrounded in Brazil by Latin American Spanish-speaking neighbors. So we didn't have as much of a prominence of Spanish unless for people who were descendants of, like I had a friend who's descendant of a Bolivian family, and he lives here and he goes back forth, so he knew Spanish. But everyone else didn't really seem to care. And that's like, nowadays I look back and I'm like, that's awful. Back then I was just like, oh yeah, it's one less subject for me to worry about. But in truth, I wish I knew Spanish back then. And nowadays we have a bit more of a media wave. But back then we really didn't, when I was a kid, really did not have a media wave of Spanish when I was growing up, which was the early 2000s, just to put it clearly, in Brazil at least. And we had this like whole negative vision about it, which I don't know if they have about Portuguese. Like I really don't know how Spanish-speaking people feel about Portuguese, but it's quite sad that everybody here hated the idea of learning Spanish deeply.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know. It feels like English is the main language that everyone's like you said, they kind of learn to speak. And I wish I could speak another language. I already have tried. Even during COVID, I learned like sign language. I knew how to like speak in sign language for a good while, and it's just all left, like it just left my head. And I guess it's because I didn't practice it often, but it's just something I've never really been able to get on with, if that makes sense, sadly. But it's also fun to watch. Like, I mean, I lurk in like a good few streams, for instance, like Crackety. I watch a lot of Crackety content, and like whenever he does stream, or like I watch these YouTube videos, even if, has he ever done, I can't even remember off the top of my head if he's done like a video in a different language or like in Spanish, or I should say, not even different language. But like Shadoon, like I watch a good amount of Shadoon and stuff, even when he's streaming in Spanish, because it's still nice to watch. Like even if I can't really understand it, it's still interesting, still good content. You know, like I'm very open to watching creators who aren't only speaking English. It just obviously makes it a little bit easier when I can type in their chat and understand is all, you know.
I was going to add to that. I, despite being part German from my grandma, I don't know German. I tried to learn it in school, but unfortunately I was learning French around the same time, and it was all very confusing to my young brain. But yeah, and then it just ever since, it's been not really a thing for me to learn a second language. But then there's so many people I know, like Duchapol, who's in the MCC community. They run MCC, the show, not MCC live show, sorry. English is his second language, and like he's done incredibly because it's only recently he's learned to learn English and so on to be in this community already. And yeah, I'm very not jealous isn't the word. Very, I guess, a sense of
speaking of like a
pride.
second language as well.
Well, a sense of pride in learning that, to be part of this community.
Also, that sense of appreciation, like you've been able to learn a second language. I was never able to learn a second language, and that's why I'm so like, you know, I'm in awe. That's the word. I'm in awe of people who can like
yes,
speak multiple languages.
There you go.
There we go.
Perfect.
So, where are you, before you carry on, Roman, quickly, sorry, I just want to follow up with AJX here quickly. So you're German, you're English, where else are you, where other nationalities are you, AJX?
Scottish.
So a lot of people don't know this with me, and I'm kind of shocked, actually. So I'm half English, half Irish. So like when a lot of people are like, oh, you're just English, I'm like, but I'm not. And they're like, oh, but it's the same thing. I'm like, it's not the same thing. Like, oh, but you speak English, you were born in England. It's like, yeah, but I have an Irish passport. Like I don't have it. I live in Britain. I don't have a British passport. I have an Irish passport. My dad is fully Irish and my mum's fully English. I can't speak Irish. Like I learned like how to say some words in Gaelic when I was in primary school, but that's it. I think it's like Gaelic. I did learn Gaelic. I'm not sure if that's I can't remember if that's like fully the Irish language or not, but I did learn Gaelic because that's what my dad like helped me with. And it's like a lot of people are like, oh, but like English is all the same thing anyways. Like you speak English when you're in Ireland. It's just like, but it's not. It's a different country, completely different country. That's why I have an Irish passport, not a British passport, because Ireland is a completely different entity. So it's kind of partially that as well. Like it's unrelated. Just wanted to get it out there. I'm not fully British. I am also half Irish. So and I take pride in being half Irish as well because I'm glad I'm not only British. I'm glad I can turn around and say I'm part Irish as well. Like I went there for my birthday this year. Plan on going there next year. My dad's from Limerick. Like, that's where I go when I go to visit family in Ireland is Limerick. Yeah, that's it. I just wanted to put that out there.
I think it's very important to recognise where you come from, the cultural differences in each place. Obviously, it's a lot different to the cultural differences in England and Brazil. It's a lot less, but there's still like such a huge part of me like that respects my Scottish culture and my it's my grandparents that I come from, so respecting their cultures and so on, even if there's even a slight difference. But being the difference between that and being English and Scottish and being English and not English and Brazilian, but the differences between the two countries is a lot different.
It's like when I go to Ireland, right, where my family live, they live in like a small little town in America. It's like, so when I go over there, from when I was younger, everybody knows. I have no clue who they are. But everybody, how I always say it, and I'm so glad I don't live there because I couldn't stand this, it's like people will know what you've had for breakfast before you even wake up. That's how like everybody knows everybody, right? Everybody knows what everybody's doing. They're all very nosy, etc. And I've said this like when I've talked to my nan, and she knows it as well. Like, they're very nosy. Whereas in England, I say hi to my neighbours. I don't know all my neighbours' names. I don't know anything about them. Sometimes I'll pass them and go, "You're right." Don't know their name. Just saying hi to them, just being polite. And it's like it's so different. Like when my family in Ireland, they know everybody. They go into the town and then like they're talking away to everybody. They're all friendly with everybody. Everybody's saying hi to them. They all know each other. And then I come back to England. Everybody knows me. I come back to England and then people barge me when I go off the train. People like pushing and shoving just so they can get a seat. Just like so different like ideas when you go to different like places. I
once went to Germany. This is like more of an anecdote, but I once went to Germany and there were a lot of tourists in one area, and there were some people who skipped the queue ahead of us, and there was this British couple right in front of me. So they saw them skipping and they were like, they got upset that nobody was queuing properly, and they were like, "Don't you have manners where you come from?" And they were like getting really upset that nobody was queuing properly, and I found that so funny. But yeah, it is just like different cultures. You have very different ideas of that kind of thing.
It's a weird question, Roman. I have really quickly. Sorry, just before I lose it. Sorry to cut you off. And it's a very weird question, but you just have to give it a quick answer and then you can carry on. I just want to say, right. Is there a certain rule with escalators in Brazil?
Not at all. I mean, so since I've traveled a lot, I haven't. I tend to follow the rule of if I'm not walking down or up, I will stick to the right side. But nobody else follows this rule.
Yeah, that's what it is in England. If that's everybody, at least in London, that's what everybody follows religiously. Is if you're not walking, you stand on the right, and if you're walking, you go on the left. You never stand on the left. And I don't know if that's the same up north, AJX, but at least down here in London, that is literally the rule that everyone follows. Sorry, it's just really quickly while I was in my head. You can go back to what you was talking about. My bad. I just wanted to get down there. Like in comparison, kind of.
That is a good comparison. Which isn't to say like, oh, Brazilian people are really impolite. It's just that for some reason we have like different etiquette for some reason. I don't know why. I don't like that etiquette. I don't like the etiquette we have in that term. I prefer keeping to one side because I'm trying to think of, oh yeah, if I was walking up, because I'm a really impatient person at times.
Yeah, I just
want to walk, I don't want to sit still too long a lot of the time. if somebody's just in my way, then I'm like, oh, Christ's sake. So that's something that I really enjoy. But then as well, like Brazilian people are also just generally very warm, to the extent that even me, as a shy and introverted person, I still go out to buy food or something, and I'll just, like, I did this last Friday night when I went to buy food near my apartment. There's like a little fair that takes place every Friday and shit like that. That's like a lot of places do that. And I went to buy some food, and then there was this like couple of, I don't know, they were like probably 40 or 50 years old, and they were just like next to me, and they were just started bantering together for some reason while we waited food. And I was like, this made me really happy. And that happens like pretty much every time I go out. You'll just find like Brazilian people doing something that you can just kind of join in and have fun with, even if you don't know their names and you never learned their names. I've had a lot of those kinds of encounters, and a lot of the time I'm like, I wish I knew their names now. Like, I've had a lot of times where I've talked to somebody and had a really pleasant time without knowing them at all. That's just something that I love about Brazil that I haven't really had anywhere else. But I feel like it's a really Latin American thing that I see a lot of people talking about.
Yeah.
I mean, like 3 weeks back, my train was delayed, right? And I was standing at the train station, and like they kept making announcements every 5 minutes saying a train's going to come. It was never coming. And so there's like this other lady there, and then she like laughed and said something to me. So then I started talking to her, so then I paused my music, and obviously because of the podcast, right? Because of the podcast, I can kind of just talk to anyone now. You know, I've learned how to match people's energy, right? So if I knew she didn't want to talk, I would have killed the sentence. She was really talkative. In the end, we started talking about how, like, you know, I'm having spaghetti bolognese for dinner. She's also having spaghetti bolognese for dinner. And then the entire train ride home, it was packed because of the train being delayed, so it was as busy as it got. And literally before you got on the train, I was like, oh, like, you get on first, and if I get on, I get on. If not, then I'm not. She's like, if you don't get on, I'm putting you through the door. Never met this woman in my life before, by the way. And that's just the conversation we were having. And then the entire train ride home, we were talking about like dinner, about what she's doing for the weekend. She was talking about how she's going to go to the pub. This was the week I was going to Comic-Con with my girlfriend. So like, I was talking about how I'm going to Comic-Con and like at the XL, blah, blah, blah. And it's like, just that like, kind of similar to you, but that isn't always really normal, at least in Britain.
No,
like,
no,
I don't,
not at all.
but like, I've learned,
Especially in London.
for instance, where I work, right, I don't want to dox myself too much here, but like, you get your regulars, right? And some of the regulars will come, they'll buy it, they'll walk away. But then like some of the regulars, like, you have to pick and choose. So depending on the shift I'm working, so if I'm working like the morning shift, I have this one lady comes in, she gets an oat milk latte, right? As soon as I see her walk towards it, I'm already heating the milk before I've even taken her payment. And then we will just have a conversation before she's even paid for the drink while I'm making it, and then she'll pay for it. Then we'll have a conversation then, because I just know what she's getting. And it's like, but that's just also like just me, because of the podcast, learning how to talk to different people. But yeah, it's not normalized at all. I kind of make it normal in my life. And when with the whole like escalator thing, it wasn't meant to come off as like me saying, oh, like Brazilian people are rude, because that's not what I meant.
Don't worry, I didn't take that as that.
It's just because when you said it, to clarify, I'm just clarifying also. But it's also like the comparison of, in England, we drive on the left. In European countries, they drive on the right. Mm-hmm. So, you know, and I don't know, but what side do they drive on the road? The
right side, yes. I just had to like remember my directions for a second.
Because Ireland, they drive on the left as well. That's what I'm saying. So it's very different, yeah. It's just, there's so many different like things. And then, but there's also a good few comparisons as well, you know? Can't really think of any off the top of my head, but...
I like playing Euro Truck Simulator with friends. And when I go to the UK in the game, I always drive on the wrong side of the road.
Okay.
I always get into a fucking headlong, like a full-on collision with somebody, with an NPC, because I'm just on the wrong side, and that's just like something that I can't quite rewire in my brain easily.
Yeah, so this is nice. This is a nice little conversation, by the way. I'm glad we're doing this podcast, because it's just kind of turned into a conversation of comparing ourselves. Not really comparing, but like, you know, this is just a nice little chat with like two friends. So thank you.
Aw, yeah, I'm enjoying it a lot.
This little off topic there. You know, this is what happens behind the scenes when AJX isn't being an absolute gremlin. So.
Whoa, we were doing so well, and then you have to bring that.
Whoa! That's a positive thing, AJX. It shows that you have humor.
I'm the funniest person here.
I don't think Roman might be the funniest.
I don't think so. Thank you.
No, you are.
We'll just go on.
Certainly not you, Orbitzz. What?
Please.
Ouch. Every time you're mean to me, I'm going to put toxic waste in my mouth. So I'll just put a toxic waste in my mouth now. New game for the podcast.
That sounds like it's worse for you than it is me.
No, because I
was going to say.
Okay.
So you're just absolutely mad.
Oh, actually, unless you have a follow-up with this, Roman, I have a really random fun fact again. Mm-hmm. So where I work, there are 6 of us. One of them, he's new. He's Polish. He speaks like fluent English. Like if you didn't see his surname, you didn't ask him. Like you'd not to say I assume, because I never assume. But for people who do assume, you'd assume he's British, right? But he's Polish. And I'm like with another lady who's from Poland, like a man who's old, I think he's like 62 or 63. He's from Ghana, right? And then like the other colleagues are from different parts of Europe as well. I'm just going to assume here. With the man who's from Ghana, right? So I really like jollof rice, right? If you haven't heard of it, it's like an African dish. There's a lot of African dishes, but this is one of them. I came to like it when I was in secondary school because one of my friends, he used to have it for lunch. One day I went to his house for dinner and we had it for dinner. Anyways, near me there's like an African shop that I sometimes order from, jollof rice. So I told him once when I was at work, he's like, you like jollof? And I was like, yeah. He's like, how? Because obviously me being British, he didn't assume it, but just he's never heard it before. He's never heard someone openly say that. So I'm like, yeah, no, I love jollof. Now, at least 2 or 3 times a week, he brings me in like a container of jollof rice that he's made for himself for lunch, and he makes it for me for lunch as well. Random fun fact, but just the whole thing of culture of like, unless you talk to people about stuff, they're not gonna know, because it's not that people purposely assume, but they're just not gonna question it. Like for instance, him, like if I'd never told him I'd like jollof, he would have never bought me jollof rice in for lunch. But just because I saw him eating it one day, I was like, oh yeah, I love that. It's like, what do you mean you love it? I was like, I love jollof rice, you know. And it's like, yeah, just a random fun fact to kind of go with the whole international thing. We're kind of going, there's not really a topic to this. There's a topic of international diversity, but there's not like a solid topic of like Minecraft creators and stuff, which I feel like it started it off to be, and then we kind of just got talking about ourselves and stuff, you know.
That's what I love. No, like the thing as well is, I feel like what should I call it? Culinary exploration is such a big part of why people learn different cultures to begin with. Is because you see the food and you think that looks interesting and good, and some people will look at everything in the world and go, that looks disgusting, no matter what it is. But still, like I feel like cooking and food are just generally like, that's why a place like London is so diverse. You have so many different restaurants made by so many different families that came from all over the world, and generally just big cities. Like every capital that I go to has some variety of some degree, and it's always the big like way for somebody to have contact with that culture without explicitly going to that country, because you meet the owners, you meet like usually it's a family business, you meet everyone, you meet the food, you get to know the food most importantly, and then it kind of goes from there, and I find that really sweet.
Whenever my family and I went to Spain, we haven't been in like 2019, and I want to go back there. I was meant to actually go back there this year with my girlfriend, but it just plans fell through. I think we might go next year. But I go to a certain part of Spain called El Estado de Montgrí, and again, really sorry if I pronounced that wrong. I think as far as I'm aware, that's pronounced right. Okay, sorry if it isn't though. Like, of course, like, you know, I'm gonna make mistakes. But this part of Spain, it's just outside of Girona. It's an hour bus ride from Barcelona. Basically, it's very touristy. It's a very touristy place. So every single shop you go into, ran by like obviously Spanish people. However, I think one of the requirements for some of the shops is you have to speak English, because it's just so popular for like English tourists. Anyways, when for the first 2 years that we went there, there was this outside of the campsite, which is called El Estado de Montgrí. Outside of that campsite, there's like this little restaurant, and I googled it, and it said it's shut down, but then another site said it's still open. So I'm really, really hoping it hasn't shut down. I'm gonna get to the point here in a second. Sorry. So we didn't ever go in there because every single time we walked past, it was dead quiet. And obviously, if you look into a shop and it's always quiet, you don't really want to go in there. But then after 3 years of going there, not 3 years on the trot, we were like, it's always so quiet, but it's still open. So it's always quiet when we walk past, but it's still a functional business. Like, so it can't be that bad. So we went in there, right? And I got a fajita and chips. Oh my god, that entire 7 days we only had dinner from there. When I tell you, I tell a lie, we went in there on the 4th day, so for the final 3 days we only had dinner from there. The best fajita I have ever tasted. Oh my god. And my dad got like a roast chicken and chips, and even he said it was like, the restaurant was magnificent. And that's what I mean, it's just another case of like, I love fajitas, but then having it from this restaurant in Spain, it just was beautiful. You know, it actually made me cry. I cried at the table. You know, so no, but also it was like really, really nice. And it's also a case of like, for instance, my girlfriend, she is half Italian, half Argentinian. So a dish that we love to make together is empanadas. Very, very nice. So we don't, it's quite bad because you don't actually make like, so empanadas, you have to like fold it over and stuff like that. We can't seem to get the hang of it. So we make the empanadas, but we kind of like freestyle the final part of it, which is quite bad. The idea of like the meat and the way it's cooked and the spices, all of that, we follow perfectly. So it's just like another case of that is really, really nice. And it's a different kind of culture of food, like you mentioned, you know. So.
Yeah, God, I'm gonna get so hungry for dinner in a bit.
Yeah, I'm hungry and I've already had that. But more random fun facts is what I'm trying to get at here. So
I really love that. It's also because a lot of people have like their exposure to generally just usually Mexican food, but generally Latin American food and a bit of Spanish food because some of that food was also inspired by Spanish dishes. A lot of people's exposure to that will be originally Taco Bell, that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's like the
Specifically,
basic
like
that people
Americans.
say, right?
Yeah, like Taco Bell is usually so far removed from anything that it tries to resemble that it can't even be called a mimic. It's not quite a mimic. It's more like a shattered image. It's like if you took a hammer to a really beautiful mosaic and you made it a bit disgusting on top of that, a bit sloppy. That's what Taco Bell is in the grand scheme of it.
Yeah.
And then you have these amazing restaurants that people should. You should go to your nearest immigrant-run restaurant. You should. That's like a fact of life. They're always amazing.
Yeah, no, that's what like, when I mentioned I order like from that like the African shop. I say literally, I think pretty sure like that's the name of it. It's like something. That's why I'm not specifically saying a name. Is because that is literally the name. I also don't really want to dox myself. But like I order from there all the time. I actually went in there once and there's like I can't remember the name of the meat. It's annoying. It was on like a stick, so it looked like kebab. And when I went in there to her, I said like I know it's not a kebab. I said I know that's not a kebab, but if I don't know the name of it, I'm really sorry. And she told me the name of it. I was like, can I try it? She's like, it's not a kebab though. And I said I know. Like, she's like, oh, are you sure you're gonna like it? I was like, I want to try it. And it's like she was really shocked because like I just went in there and I wanted to try it. And that's what I'm saying. It's weird. Like although they like there's all these shops open and stuff like that, it's not common. Sorry, that like a different variety, I guess is the word, of people go in there to like try the food. Apparently, based on her reaction, kind of is what gave me that impression, kind of thing. And then also I order a lot. I order it a lot more than I actually walk in because I can't be bothered to. So that's why it's probably also like a thing of they're always ordering to my house, but then they've never really seen me. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
So still my way of supporting, I guess. I mean, it is supporting. I don't have to go in there to support. I'm just also supporting Uber Eats in the process, apparently.
Yeah. But I love how we've just spun the discussion into the wild areas. I really love that.
I think it's more just me taking over here. Sorry, I said this is your podcast. I tend to do this. I think I did this on the Noxide one as well. I was like, AJX, this is your field. Go ahead. And then I just think of things like I didn't really have any topics to talk about, and all of a sudden I'm like, crap. Let me tell them about like this, and let me tell you guys about this, because it's also like not. I guess this is partially coming out of a comfort zone as well, because I obviously being British is something that I just want to say anything offensive. It's like when I did the podcast with you, AJX, about the Asexual Disability Week. It's like because I don't have a disability and because I'm also a straight white male, I want to talk about it and I want to learn about it, but I also have to like I don't want to say anything that I look back and I'm like, oh shit, I didn't mean to. Because a lot of content creators do it. Sometimes they'll say stuff or do stuff which comes off as really offensive and they don't mean it, and a lot of people will know they don't mean it, but then a lot of other people will think they meant it. So like I'm also really just, that's why I was like, I'm really looking forward to this podcast. I'm just like, oh shit, I don't want to unintentionally offend anyone, but I think I'm doing all right. I hope I'm doing all right. I'm talking a lot, amazing. And I'm going to stop now. Take over, please. Roman and AJX, it's your turn to talk a lot. Go on.
Do you want to talk about anything, AJX?
No, good. Go ahead, Roman.
Oh, we can guide it a bit more towards Minecraft if you want, because then I think it'll be a bit more like universal for you to talk about.
Yeah,
but
that's a good idea.
Ironically, so I mentioned that I only got back into Brazilian content creators this year again. So I knew vaguely about some of them, like I knew about Cellbit, and I watched Tasercraft when I was a kid. But I didn't watch them for like a decade, and then suddenly I started watching them again this year because of the QSMP. And then I only personally met other Brazilian content creators because of MCC Rising too, because I trained the Brazilian team. Yes. So I just raided into Wendy one day, and I was like, if you need any help, let me know. And then we DM'd, and we were like, yeah, let's help out. And I made them a whole like training server. And like I had very little time because of university, but I still like made them a little training server. And they were just very dedicated, and we had a lot of banter and stuff. It was really nice. It was really fun. Like the best thing of MCC Rising 2 for me will always be the behind the scenes experiences that I had and that I continue to have with them, because I still talk to them. They'll occasionally hit me up and say, do you want to play Minecraft? Or like we'll have like stream ideas that we try to get like working together. Like Wendy does a lot of Stardew Valley content. And also I feel like the Brazil team is actually one of the teams with the people in it who have grown the most out of Rising, because Wendy got her 100k on YouTube and her verified tick, and then she has also been getting like massive views on Twitch off the back of her own work, of course. But Rising definitely helped her like get that kind of, I don't know, that impetus, I guess, of going out there and really just putting yourself out there and putting in that kind of hard work that she manages on top of university and life. So it's just been like an incredible experience for me, because also I just find them very inspiring, honestly. I just find Wendy particularly, since she does content creation so regularly, it's just so inspiring to me. And then the whole like English Portuguese bilingual streams I used to do at the time were also very, very just, I had never seen something like that. You know what I mean? I didn't know it was an option. So I started doing that. They changed how I look at this entirely because ever since then, I haven't taken out English and Portuguese out of my title and tags because I want people to know, yeah, I can speak both and you're welcome here. And also when people come in and speak Spanish, I speak Spanish as well. And I didn't know that was an option. I had no clue that was an option. I thought, oh, I have to choose between one and the other. I guess I'll choose English because all my friends in the content creator space are English speakers. But Rising 2 completely changed the way that I look at things entirely.
Yeah, definitely. I think that was a big step, and coming off the fact we had the full Spanish team as well was massive. Funny enough, I trained another team, so we're rival trainers, or help another team. My team won, so L to you.
Time to have another toxic waste.
But in my defense, we had like a couple of days of training, and it was only three of the team. Like one of them never showed up because she was that busy with school. They all had exam week that week. I don't know if you guys know this. Every single member of the Brazil team had a load of exams on the week of MCC Rising.
Jesus Christ,
all of them.
Also, Lime Llamas had Wade box, so like it was already an advantage anyway.
And half of the Brazil team was on laptops. One of them only used a trackpad.
Oh my
until
god!
They got into Rising. Oh, they did their best. They did amazing in practice.
As someone who also used trackpads.
I use a £10 keyboard. I said I'm only going to buy a keyboard if I get into like a big tournament. Because the £10 keyboard does me justice. I don't really do, like I stream, I've been getting back into streaming, but I kind of just do it for fun. So
yeah.
But I think that moment, because no one really thought about the different teams in MCC Ireland. Sorry, not Ireland Rising, because we were talking about Ireland. So I think, they needed at least one team. And I'm glad it was the Brazilians. They did so well, and they were, it was quite nice. They brought a nice, I'm trying to think of the word.
Nice vibe, I guess.
Vibe, there you go. Thank you very much.
No worries, AJX Highway's got you. Into
the event, which was very, very good, because it is extremely competitive. And, they did, as you've said, that they didn't have the gear, they didn't have the time, and they still showed themselves to their very best. And I think that's exactly what Rising should be about, no matter what country you're from. Mm-hmm. So yeah, it's definitely an improvement, from MCC1. And we were talking about before the podcast. There isn't many people in the actual event that are from different nations and so on. So Quackity, we had Meths originally, but now we have the Spanish team is obviously the big one, but we are getting more and more people join MCC from different cultures.
That was something that I think Orbitzz and I were talking in DMs at some point while we were talking about this podcast, like the fact that this was going to happen. I mentioned to Orbitzz, we had been talking earlier in a stream chat about how like MCC has been dropping, like the larger creators have been leaving. Like Rambo announced that they're leaving. Phil's announced he's probably going to leave as well. Yeah. Then before that, we had like a load of other big creators leaving. Wilbur hasn't played in over a year now, since last year's Halloween.
And he wasn't every single one as well.
He wasn't every single one up until that point, except for like a couple of non-canons.
Yeah, but every single canon.
Every single canon. And then on top of that, he was also there in like Christmas and Halloween ones quite often.
Mm-hmm.
And
I was going to say, for Phils and Rambo, I believe it's just that they're not going to be in this next one. And then obviously there'll be a break in between the seasons.
Could well be, yeah. Rambo was very like, oh yeah, this is my last MCC on Twitter. But I don't know if they, I think they might change their mind. I think there's just a bit of burnout, because what Philza was saying is he didn't play MCC for a couple months, and he said that he didn't miss it, and that was why he was thinking of maybe not playing anymore, or maybe taking that break. But yeah, since MCC has lost a lot of its large creators due to burnout or other responsibilities, I was telling Orbitzz, and also was talking about in that stream chat, that you have like if I look at my top Twitch like viewed streams right now, at the top there's always like Selbit, there's always Forever, there's always the Tasercraft boys, Baji, there's Bagheera, there's always like these other creators that are really big on the QSMP, who if they joined MCC, which would also help with the competitiveness of the event, like bringing a team that can play well but doesn't necessarily care as much about that as they do about having fun, they could easily bring in genuinely tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands of new viewers from global communities that seem like that. And I feel like it would be fun to see if MCC wants to take that chance at some, because they brought in the Spanish Spanish speakers. But what's next? Because you also could bring in like Selbit and Forever and Baji are all three, and Tasercraft as well, actually. So all 4/5, since Tasercraft is 5 people, it's 2 people. So like all those channels are absolutely huge globally in terms of global viewership, and they bring in tens of thousands to hundreds of thousands each, depending on what they're doing on the day. So you could easily diversify both the audience and also bring in audiences that haven't necessarily seen MCC, so they won't have a burnout to begin with. Because audiences also get tired of it at some point. Like over the years, MCC has become something where a lot of casual audiences don't watch it as much as they used to, because it's become a lot more like enticing to people who have followed a lot of MCCs, who are watching for competitive reasons. But then you bring in people who are much less inclined towards that, who are having like a brand new experience of MCC. It's quite revitalizing, and that's what MCC Rising 2 did as well, to a smaller extent, for the Brazilian community, because nobody really knew MCC at all. Like Wendy and the team had to tell people what MCC was.
And yeah, I think I definitely think that could be a massive thing for them. You know, I see obviously Noxcrew worked with I can't remember the K-pop group now. My memory today has been awful, hasn't it? What's the biggest K-pop group? The boy one.
Well, it could be BTS.
Yes, it's that. They worked with BTS on a Minecraft thing, and you know, there's such a huge audience in Korea that would, I'm sure, love to play Minecraft. You know, in Japan, the biggest Xbox game ever in Japan is Minecraft. So there's so many. I'm pretty sure it's the biggest. It's the biggest Microsoft game ever in Japan is Minecraft on Switch. So it's the highest selling game is Minecraft on Switch. But you know, there's audiences all around the world that love Minecraft. You know, some places don't really focus on Twitch, let's say, but there's audiences out there throughout the world, and we've already seen so much with the Spanish-speaking players and the Brazilians. You know, that even if they're from different countries, they can join other teams, they can blend together into the event as a whole. So you don't just have to have, say, a Korean team, a Japanese team, and that would be massive for the event. I definitely agree with you. It would boost it tenfold. And you know, we already have so many creators in the QSMP that would be perfect for this.
Yeah,
you just want to talk about the QSMP. Just because, like, obviously we're saying this, it doesn't mean that they haven't tried. Because, like, it's the same with the podcast, right? I've invited creators on. I've had creators say no podcast, and then someone might turn around and be like, "Oh, why didn't you get this person on?" It's like, but like, I'm not going to say it publicly, but I have invited that person. And this hasn't happened. No one said the name, but like, I have invited that person on, but they don't want to come on the podcast. There's not much I can do from there. Like, obviously, I know there's like loads of Spanish speaking creators, there's loads of Korean speaking creators, all that kind of jazz, right? But like, that doesn't always mean, like, you know, they could have asked N Korean speaking creators, and every single one of them could have said no. For all we know, you know what I mean? So it's like, we think it'd be amazing, and I too completely agree with that. It's just the example of like knowing from how the podcast works doesn't always mean that they haven't tried. You know, I know you're not saying this. I just want to put it out there in case like the viewers then kind of get the wrong idea, but then form that idea. It's like, you know, just speaking from experience kind of thing.
I mean, even for the QSMP, a lot of people were invited but didn't join, specifically in the Brazilian. An issue that Faculty had initially is that, so the Brazilian community is very focused on speed, not speedruns actually, sorry, more focused on redstone and mods is a lot of what the Brazilian community in Minecraft does. We don't have a lot of peers or a lot of like competitive play. We don't have events, right? We don't have Brazilian events, which is a nightmare for me because I would love to play on an event where I don't have 200 ping. Like every event that I play, I have a second delay between like, oh, the speed up pad that I'm trying to go over in this racing game, or the jump pad, and suddenly it's like, oh god, I hate everything that's going on with my ping right now. But we don't have that kind of like generalized, sentiment towards Minecraft, where it's mostly people just doing SMPs. Like it's as well. Quackity was in Tortilla Land. Tortilla Land is the kind of thing that we do here, except in our own Brazilian way. And we used to do a lot of adventure maps and shit like that. But we're never big into the whole, I don't know, the outside of this, like outside of the redstone space. People were not, and also the vanilla space. Like a few people do modded series, but most people don't. Most people do vanilla and redstone, which is quite weird to people who to people who have a lot more diversity in how you can play Minecraft. And I've been playing modded for so long. So that was a problem that Quackity had initially, is a lot of people were turning down, like he asked people publicly on their streams, like, would you be interested in joining? Or he would show up donating to check somebody out. And his chat would be like, oh, this is Quackity, and he's doing this server. He's probably going to invite you. And then the streamer would be like, and they would be like, oh, I don't really dig doing mods, and I don't really like doing this and that. I'm mostly just like chilling on my world, and it's such a like there are a lot of factors that go into whether somebody joins or not. It's not just like because of this person existing doesn't mean they'll like automatically accept the invitation.
Yeah.
So yeah, on top of that,
I'm back here with Orbitzz fun facts. Woo! Episode number 55. This podcast. So another one I thought of while you guys were chatting away. Sorry. Hi, I'm back. Welcome.
hi.
Was on your streams, for example, RomanRodri. Oh my god, RomanRodri stream reference is I will ask you a question and then Redeem speak Portuguese for a minute. You have to answer the question in Portuguese. I don't understand what you're saying. Don't know what you're answering with, but I just like hearing you speak Portuguese. I just redeem it. I just ask you a question, and as you're about to answer it, redeem the channel point reward. So once again, another fun fact. You know,
That's really fun when people do that. I think I disabled the redeem because I speak Portuguese anyway nowadays without the point redeem.
Yeah.
That's like the only reason that I disabled it. But I still speak it often with like chatters and stuff.
Fair enough. I feel like I killed the vibe there. You guys were having a really good conversation. I kind of
you
just said
didn't.
some of my fun facts. My bad.
Not at all. Shush. That was great.
I have something else as well. Right, let me pull it up. Right, so a few weeks back, specifically on the November 18th, right? The InsideMC podcast made a tweet. Where in the world are you listening to the podcast from? Drop your country below, trying to see some. That was specifically for this podcast, as I wanted to give a shout out to you, the viewers, and I'm going to name every single one of you because there wasn't too many replies. And also for the viewers who didn't reply to that, this is why you should interact with tweets. You could have been in a podcast.
Also, put it in the comments.
Yeah, put in the comments below as well. So, one from Captain AJX, your mums. Good stuff. We got Salad the Real from Wales. Hashtaggy from Poland. Mr. Kuverman. I always pronounce the name wrong. I'm so sorry. Merkverman. Slovakia. Fireman RD. Germany. Server. Scotland. Axiaxolotl, Omen, Robin Bird from Luxembourg and England, they've listened from, so they might just be going on holiday, I don't know. Elise, America, but sometimes France. Shiny Dude, United States. Piloted, Australia. Miezi, so sorry if I pronounced your name wrong. Denmark, Ezra, Spain, Nova is sleepy. It's a struggle watching the InsideMC podcast upside down, so I'm gonna assume Australia on that basis. Someone just called Dad from Singapore, Sophie from Australia, and Deathlord from Germany. So like that even shows, even with the podcast, we have listeners all around the world. Like if I go onto my Spotify statistics, right, and I go to, actually no, wait, I can go through my Spotify Wrapped because I got the Spotify Wrapped today. Oh my god, give me a second while it loads. I just need to skip to the page where it's like the top 5 countries. Why am I using that actually? I can just so audience, so in the last, ever since the all time, I've had the top 10 countries are United States, United Kingdom, Canada, India, Australia, Ireland, Sweden, Germany, Slovakia, and Philippines. And then actually 11th I want to say is St. Kitts and Nevis, the Netherlands, Finland. So that's what I mean. Like even you guys listen to the podcast. Like you listen from all over the world. Like it's not just people who live in England, English-speaking countries who listen.
I had no idea there was that much variety. So I was expecting it to be very like, aside from a few people, I was expecting it to be very like England and United States dominated, which is quite surprising to me.
But I mean, in regards to the numbers, like all time. So United States 1.6k, United Kingdom 748, Canada 301, India 296, Australia 280, Ireland 195. Sweden 171, Germany 114, Slovakia 87, Philippines 85. So that's a lot. Like even if it's just one, because then
That is a lot, yeah.
even if it's just one person listening to every single podcast, it's still like someone from that like a different country listening. So
Yeah.
Well, I was going to say, I know from experience that a lot of the community, there's a big part of our community that's in Poland. A lot of the Nordic countries have members in the community. And then I think a lot of people from South America and Mexico now as well. I know a big portion of the people now I talk to just aren't, there's less and less from just England, which, well, it's not less and less, it's lesser of a proportion, which is amazing. So I think it's the best way for the community to go.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Do you have anything else to add, Roman, to this podcast? Or it's been a bit of a messier one, but like a nice mess.
Oh god, I'm sure that I'll think about something when I'm taking a shower later or something. For now, you guys said everything. Yeah.
Jeez. Anything else from you, AJX?
No.
I feel like I've stepped in with a lot of fun facts. I'm sorry. The rhythm of this has been great. But I don't know. just waffling away. It's been a good podcast. With that being said, then I think this brings the end to a shorter midweek MC. Who would have thought we've actually had a short midweek MC? It's crazy. There's not really like an end goal to this podcast. It's more just us talking about it really and talking about our experiences and stuff like that. I think it's been really fun. Yeah, it's been really nice to have a conversation with the both of you.
It's also good to get out there that there are these communities and to pay attention to them. And definitely, if you're younger and taking Spanish or even if you're taking English or you're taking Portuguese or any different language, learning it via creators is a great way to be. Learning it from music can also help. But surrounding yourself in that country's language is huge. And learning about different cultures as well is always important in any form, in any part of life, because it's going to help you, in the future. There's endless possibilities of what it can help you with, from getting a job to getting a significant other, all this sort of stuff. It can really change your life for the better, but also it's just a wonderful thing to do.
Yeah.
Something that I read once, which is very true, and it goes hand in hand with what you just said, is that you should always be trying to educate yourself on immigrant cultures in your area and just other cultures generally, because your kids are going to go to school with kids of other immigrants. Like for me, obviously, I'm going to be an immigrant. I'm going to be living abroad. But for people who receive immigrant cultures, well, it's not like I've set it in stone. It's just something that I really want to do. Something that I really want to do that I've been working towards for so much time. But people who receive immigrant cultures around you, you're going to be your knowledge of these things is going to bleed into future generations also, and your acceptance of it is going to be exemplary. So always be open and working hard towards that, because it's a very it's an entirely positive thing to do. But a lot of people just don't realize it, I feel. Yeah.
At the end of the day, if you can, pay more attention to, not go out of your way to pay more attention, but watch other people's content. Even if you don't understand the language, it can always be a fun watch. I enjoy watching, like I said earlier. And just respect each other. Obviously, especially if you speak if you speak a specific language and that's somebody's second language, be respectful, be grateful that they're speaking their second language so you can speak your first. Yeah, just keep connections with different people all around the world. It's always fun, especially if you're close with someone. For instance, if I ever go to Brazil, I'd love to meet Roman. And I have that connection now that I can go and Roman can hook me up with the best place to stay, and I can go and hang out with them. Idea. Obviously, don't do it for the purpose of benefits. That's not what I was trying to get at. Also, it's always just fun to talk to different people all around the world, hear different experiences, and that's kind of what we've done today. I've been able to give my own examples. I seem to have a lot of stories for a 20-year-old. Isn't it crazy, AJX? I'm so young and I have so many stories.
Yeah, 20 years old. Yeah, I honestly thought you were 21. So the fact you're 20 is even worse. You are a child.
But toxic waste of the podcast right at the very end. GG. But with that being said, Roman, before I do the outro here, would you like to promote yourself? You're part of the podcast team. You finally made your podcast appearance. Look at that, eh? Finally got around to it.
Oh, shucks.
I did say it on stream publicly, so I will say it. Roman's podcast was originally meant to be the Noxide one. So thank you again, Roman, for moving back. I didn't ask, Roman offered. I want to make that I did kind of ask. I told Roman that I have the possibility of having Noxide, and then I'll move me back. I was like, okay, that's fine. But a big thank you to you for that. And I'm glad we finally got to talk to you. But yeah, so promote yourself. Where can we find you on all your apps? Twitch, Twitter, YouTube. You can find me at RomanRodri BR on Twitch and on Twitter, and you can find me at RomanRodri23 on YouTube. It's still a bit out of date, but I want to do more YouTube videos, so go subscribe to my YouTube. Honestly, there we go. Should I ask AJX where we can find him, since I let him introduce himself as well, or do we not care?
I don't think we care.
Wow. Okay. Actually, to be fair, AJX, fun fact, you didn't know about this. I have now actually added all your socials to the description. Rather than having a special thank you to my co-host at Captain AJX on your Twitch, I've actually included your Twitter, your Discord, your Twitch, your YouTube. It's great.
Have you got my new joint channel?
Don't push it.
Oh.
I updated it before the new join channel.
I'm joking. I was joking. Thank you very much.
You promote.
Yes,
you might as well use this moment now to quickly just say the name of the new joint channel at least. Oh, is that? I'm assuming you don't mind, Roman, right?
No, definitely. Just go for it.
Go on, AJX.
Well, Debbie would be perfect for this. Separated by pixels. Check it out.
There we go. YouTube and Twitch. Right.
Yeah.
Well then, this has been Midweek MC talking about what was it that you mentioned in the intro? Because I like that way of saying it, Roman. What was it that you mentioned in this podcast was?
I can't remember what I said 5 seconds ago. You're trying to make me remember what I said an hour or so ago.
We're gonna go with international diversity then. I think that's good.
International diversity and inclusion in the content creator space. Yeah.
W. Well, I'm not even really in the content creator space entirely for this podcast, so we kind of just went like, I was talking about my co-worker's girlfriend.
Yeah.
Shit. But this has been Midweek MC. Thank you, Roman, for joining. Thank you, AJX, for being an amazing co-host, and hopefully we'll see you again next week.
Thank you, kind sir.
Thank you too so much. It was amazing.
No worries. Thank you for watching.
It was wonderful to have you on.
It was a pleasure, RomanRodri, and we hope to have you back in the future.
Hopefully, I'd love that.
Stay safe. Don't eat too much bread. Pieces.